A secret transaction between FTX and a Bahamian bank leads us to one of the places that has the most drama in all of this FTX saga, Moonstone Bank. We're going to be taking a look at Moonstone, its connection to Dan Friedberg, and a whole new layer to the story. Let's get it. Welcome to BitSquad Crypto. My name is Ben. Make sure to smash that like button if you like these videos. And if you're not a subscriber to our channel, become a member of the BitSquad. Just hit that subscribe button. A lot of you guys are doing it. All the cool kids are doing it these days. All right, let's check this out, guys. This is from Forbes Digital Assets. We have this story, and you may be wondering, what is all of this? What does this mean? This is actually a great image. Let me break all this down to you. We have an FTX flag. We know what FTX is. This is a drink. This is supposed to represent the islands, the Bahamas. This is supposed to represent digital currency. What is this, and what is this supposed to represent? Inspector Gadget. Why? Because the guy behind all this invented Inspector Gadget. That's not even a lie. All right, FTX secretly channeled a $50 million loan to its Bahamian bank through an executive's company. All right, this is from David Jeans and Sarah Emerson from Forbes. Today, we're going to really be focusing on a couple things. We're going to be focusing on Jean Chalopin. We're going to be focusing on Dan Friedberg, because he's really the key to this whole thing. As investigators, not Gadget, other investigators. As investigators sort through the rubble of the biggest financial catastrophe in recent memory, Deltec is emerging as a central figure in the scrum of lawyers, banks, and unwitting associates FTX pulled into its orbit. Further complicating matters are a handful of transactions between FTX, its sister trading arm, Alameda Research, and Chalopin's companies that make their interests hard to disentangle. Now, of course, Jean Chalopin, he's the creator of Inspector Gadget. He is in charge of Deltec Bank, as well as Moonstone Bank. We'll be taking a look at North Dimension, the role it plays in this as well. In addition to the loan to Deltec in late 2021, Alameda invested $11.5 million into Moonstone Bank, a tiny Washington state bank owned by Chalopin through a holding company. The deal also illustrated Chalopin's ties to FTX leaders. And this is why this is so important, guys. Deltec Bank, FTX, people see them as separate. The ties are closer than many people want to admit, especially those behind Tether and other companies that use Deltec Bank. Dan Friedberg, a top FTX lawyer, the top FTX lawyer, guys. This was the guy the buck was supposed to stop with him. If there was non-compliance issues going on at FTX, he was the one responsible for that. We're gonna take a look at what he flipped and what that can mean here in a second. He was approached by Chalopin about the Moonstone deal because the two had forged a close personal bond. We've got good friends, one that works at the bank that FTX in Alameda uses, one is working at FTX. During a business trips to the Bahamas, Friedberg dined with Chalopin, and FTX and Deltec employees recalled that both men spoke highly of one another. That's right, they were patting each other on the butt non-stop. They never thought they would get in trouble. Now this, by the way, is Chuck Norris. You may know Chuck Norris from some of his movies. He actually one time punched a mountain and the mountain fell over. I'm just kidding, that's Jean Chalopin. Does that guy look like Chuck Norris? Come on. He's the French Chuck Norris, but instead of punching mountains, he pats Dan Friedberg on the butt. Okay, here we go. Dan Friedberg, a man whose butt likes to get touched a lot. FTX lawyers tied to poker scandal reportedly flipped on Sam Bankman-Fried. Now this is where things get really fascinating. Daniel Friedberg, the former FTX chief regulatory officer who is tied to a notorious online poker cheating scandal, has reportedly flipped on SBF and is cooperating with the feds in the Epic crypto case. Friedberg, a member of Bankman-Fried's inner circle and key legal advisor at FTX, met with investigators on November 22nd and detailed how the disgraced founder used customer funds to finance his business empire. I also don't think it's a coincidence that suddenly Joe Bankman, a securities lawyer, Sam Bankman-Fried's dad, he was in charge of all the philanthropy at FTX, that suddenly, right after this, now he's got a lawyer. Very interesting. I always said I believed that Friedberg would flip on Sam's parents, and it looks like that could be the case. Friedberg expects to testify against Bankman-Fried during his criminal trial in October. In 2020, a blog post that has been deleted, Bankman-Fried described Friedberg as FTX legal advisor from the very beginning. This is the smoking gun that we've been looking for. We've been looking for evidence that ties Dan Friedberg to the creation of the FTX scandal. I believe personally Sam's parents, Joe Bankman, Barbara Fried, and Dan Friedberg, These are the three most key people in this entire saga. Friedberg also advised Bankman-Fried on how to run Alameda during its launch, including, hey, here's how we do this, and you can see everybody's trades the same way they did it with the poker scandal. As the Post reported, Friedberg was an attorney for Ultimate Bets and was caught on tape advising executives on how to minimize restitution payments to the poker players who were scammed. In the leaked audio published in 2013 and still widely available online, Friedberg advised executives on a strategy to shortchange victims by withholding the extent of the scheme and pinning the blame on a fictitious former consultant who took advantage of a server flaw. Oh, it was just a mistake. Sound familiar? FTX lawyer Dan Friedberg's ties to fake electronics website has online poker echoes. And then we have this story here that discusses what's going on with Dan Friedberg and North Dimension. The SEC's complaint against SBF cited the billions that FTX customers had indirectly deposited the exchange via a convoluted workaround involving an Alameda subsidiary called North Dimension Inc. Of course, here is North Dimension. Here's a little bit about what they're supposedly offering. An electronics company. This is the Wayback Machine, guys. You got to go way back to see what they were offering. They were offering laptops, printers and supplies, a bunch of brands you've never even heard of, Blackbirds, Le Barrel. I've never heard of Le Barrel, have you? Maybe Jean Jalapin has. Okay, so they sell pixels. No images here, guys. That's a Wayback Machine. Now you come to North Dimension, and this is all it is. Now the header isn't even working. They haven't even updated their Squarespace header so it displays properly. This is North Dimension. This is where tons of money was being laundered, okay? SBF directed customers to deposit via North Dimension, whose website offered no indications of any ties to FTX or Alameda, to disguise the fact that these funds were instead going to Alameda. Funds were then credited to FTX customer accounts, but not actually transferred to FTX. North Dimension was incorporated in Delaware. Its incorporation papers drawn up by none other than Friedberg's Fenwick and West law firm. Last week, NBC News reported further details on North Dimension's now disabled but archived website, knowing that it appears to have been a fake electronics retailer shell company. This is the echoes of the Ultimate Bet scandal. Registered in Hong Kong in November 2021, North Dimension's website is replete with garbled English. Most internal links default to the About page. Site offered phones and laptops with prices far above their value, yada, yada, yada. The contact list has the same address in Berkeley, California. The FTX offshoot FTX US called home. In October 2022, just 1 month before FTX's bankruptcy filing, second North Dimension website was registered in Ontario with a .org address. The bare-bones site features only an About page that purports to represent a financial services company offering mature and stable fund management and payment processing services. So let's bring all this back around to one Mr. Dan Friedberg. Remember Dan Friedberg, Ultimate Bet scandal, $40 million stolen from players, including major poker players. You have his meetings with the Deltec Bank CEO and founder to create Moonstone Bank, the two working hand in hand with one another. You have his law firm creating the shell company organization of North Dimension, in which money was laundered and commingled from customer funds between Alameda and FTX responsible. The question is, how could one man have so much leverage that he gets out on what's called a proffer deal, which means he's probably going to serve no time? What does this man know that no one else knows? And I think that you have to go back to this man, Jean Jalapin. Does he not look like a Bond villain? He created a show called Inspector Gadget, where he may have actually been the villain in the show. Who knows? But the fact is, something that Dan Friedberg knows about Jean Jalapin, about Deltec Bank, about other customers of Deltec Bank, including none other than Tether. This is the only answer that makes sense. There could be something else off the wall. This is the only thing that makes sense that got this guy out of trouble. What we're going to find out about Moonstone Bank, about Deltec, about North Dimension, about Jean Jalapin, it's going to be absolutely damning. And I can't wait to find out. Hope you can either. Now, if you guys enjoy these videos, these awesome whiteboard videos, D10 is the company that supplied these for us. If you guys want to check them out, we got a link down below in the description until we find out more. That's all we got. Be blessed. Big boy out.